Welcome to another edition of the official Jets podcast, the Jets podcast profile series, continuing to roll on with another rookie, another first-round pick, Alijah Vera-Tucker, the Jets' 14th overall selection in the 2021 NFL Draft. And we got a trio of interviews. We got Solomon Tucker, Alijah's father. We have Tim Drevno, the USC offensive line coach. And we got Anthony Munoz, a fellow USC offensive lineman.
Well, Drevno actually was Tucker's offensive line coach with the Trojans. Now he's crosstown with the UCLA Bruins, an offensive analyst for Chip Kelly. But the Jets, this was a guy they wanted. They take Zach Wilson, number 2 overall, and then Joe Douglas was not going to wait and sit there at number 23. He used his capital to go up and get a guy he wanted, in Alijah Vera-Tucker. So the Jets, back-to-back first rounds, they address the offensive line.
And I think that it's only fitting we start, like we've done before, chronologically, with Solomon Tucker. And for those who don't know Alijah Vera-Tucker's story in terms of just kind of his upbringing, his parents divorced. They both got remarried. Each of the parents got remarried, and his stepfather's last name is Vera. Mm-hmm. So he was born Alijah Tucker, right, and then he added Vera to his last name, so he's Alijah Vera-Tucker.
Yeah, and I think on the right arm he has Tucker tattooed, and maybe on the left arm it's Vera. I'm going to double-check that right now. That is right. Yeah, that's very rare as far as what they decided to do. And Solomon talked about, I raised Alijah to be his own man. And so when he was growing up, he said, well, my mom means so much to me, and I want her name. So what happens is he becomes AVT, and the 4 parents, he learned a lot from them. Solomon and his wife work in the fire service. Alijah's mother actually was a star track athlete, and his stepdad a contractor. So I think from all of those people, they decided we're going to do what's right by Alijah. And also, that was a tight family. You see a lot of times in divorces, I think people separate. They go their own ways. With the Vera-Tuckers, they all came together. Those sets of parents, both sets of parents, those 4 people. And they, in fact, oftentimes travel together to some of Alijah's events. And they've created a really tight bond. And I think it's a unique situation.
I definitely think so, too. You mentioned the 4 of them traveling together. Yeah. They were all here when Alijah took his tour, I guess you'd say, of One Jets Drive, because he flew out the day after he was drafted. So I guess, well, that was like Friday morning or Friday afternoon, and then he had his tour, and both sets of parents were here. I think it is a unique situation, and I think it really shows a lot about Alijah, who he is as a person. He's very California cool, and then, when I shook his hand in the BetMGM studio here, he gave me a handshake that was basically like, I might be cool, but, I could kill you if I wanted to.
He's a big man. And just thinking about the Jets' left side of that offensive line, Mekhi Becton, 6'7", 360-plus pounds. Now you add Vera-Tucker. If indeed he is the opening day left guard, we'll talk about the offensive line here with the Jets in 2021 coming up. But what Alijah's father, Solomon, told me was, hey, we're nice people, and we care about the community, and we're going to go about our business and do people right. But on the field, domination is what we do.
All right, well, without further ado, let's hear from Solomon Tucker.
Solomon, what are some of your earliest memories of Alijah?
Oh, man. There's so many. When you ask that question, a lot of things come flooding through. But, they all, proud dad or whatever, but it all starts with, his personality and his smile and stuff like that. Like, he's a kid who likes to have a good time and laugh and be with family. So just all those joyous times, I can always see his smiling face. So that when you ask me what my memories are of him, that's the first thing. And then he's always been active and interested in sports. So he's always been a big kid. He dwarfs everybody in the family. And so, always just remembering how active and athletic he was, and how he's always been involved in some sort of physical activity and the joy he gets from that.
When did football become part of his life? And also, Solomon, when did you know he was onto something?
So, he's always been a big kid. And as such, the youth football rules at the time required that he would have to, if he always wanted to play football from a very young age, but the youth football rules at the time in our area would require that he have to play up in an age group because of his size. And we didn't feel like, we were ready for that. He was ready for that. Just, in terms of mentality. Mm-hmm. And so we held him back out of football, but we let him participate in a whole bunch of other sports, including soccer and lacrosse and things like that. And so it wasn't until high school that he started playing football. And from, we always had a hunch that he'd be really good at it. Cause he's a big kid who can move. And, but his freshman year of football was very obvious that that was the lane that he was going to thrive in. So
he's a nice kid, as you described, but he's also tenacious and mean on the football field. He talks about loving putting people in the dirt. Where does he get that from?
He's surrounded by competitive people. As you guys probably know, he's got 4 parents, and all 4 of us are very competitive. We're all in competitive environments too. Me and my wife were in the fire service. His stepdad is a contractor, and his mom was a track athlete. So, we're a no excuse family. So, domination is kind of what we do. And I think that's probably where he gets it from. Not to say we're not nice people. We like to, give to our community and all that good stuff. But when it comes time to work, we expect a high level of participation, and we want to dominate. So he gets it from us.
How important is his name? Because he goes by Alijah Vera-Tucker, and you talked about the 4 parents involved in his life, and I think that says something about you all too, that you have raised Alijah together, and obviously there's a common bond there too, and you also wanted the best for what Alijah had in his future.
His mother and I, Rhonda, like a lot of families, a lot of couples, we had our issues and we decided to separate. But one thing that was common between us was that we wanted to continue to co-parent, and our, part of our priority in terms of the next stages in our life, and when it came time to meet somebody else or whatever, was that the people that we met were gonna, treat Alijah like they were his own. So with that expectation that, these quote unquote step parents are going to treat your child like one of theirs, you can't get butthurt about, your kid loving them like that's their own parent, because that's the expectation you set. So when Alijah, started mentioning that, hey, I want to, I want to have the same name as the other half of my family. Honestly, that it took a little bit for me to accept that. But once I thought it through, and the fact that, he's been treated very well from the other side of the family, the Vera side. And, they've embraced him as their own, and they love him like their own, and because he is, then I kind of expect nothing else. That's how I raise my kid. So I can't pick and choose how he wants to express his love for that side of the family. And not to mention, he's his own man. So, and I raised him to be his own man. I want him to be his own man. So, that's something I got to accept too. That being said, we've we're years into that, and it's just natural now. It's like, we all get along, and we travel together. We celebrate Elijah together. His sisters are over at the house with some regularity, and it's just one big family unit, and it's better for him, and it works for us. So
what did the attraction to USC come from? Because you guys grew up in Northern California. He made it seem like you grew up down the street in Southern California. He said he was always a USC fan.
He's attracted to success, I think. You know what I mean? It's kind of funny. We haven't really I haven't really talked to him much about why. It's kind of funny you asked that question, because I haven't talked to him much about why he was so into SC, other than a lot of the people that he followed in football came from SC, and then once we went and visited as parents, once we went and visited the campus and everything, we got converted too. Growing up in the Bay Area, that wasn't tops on my radar at first, but then once we visited and met the people down there and saw what they had to offer as parents, we were all in 100%.
How did he grow as a young man there in Southern California when he went to USC? We can talk about him on the football field, obviously excelling at guard, and then having that fabulous last season where he's kicked outside and he's one of the best tackles in college football. But also, what did you see from him as far as the transformation from 17, 18-year-old kid to a 21-year-old young man who's now playing in the National Football League? But I think he's about to turn 22 here in June.
Like a lot of D1 athletes coming out of high school, they're big fish in small ponds. And so I think, he had an idea, an inkling coming out of high school that things were going to get tougher, but I don't think that he quite embraced, the next level up, how much more competitive, faster, stronger everybody was going to be. Not to say that he wasn't putting in the work already and getting prepared for that. He's been a guy that's always trying to work harder than the next guy. But I think once he got to that next level, he realized just how all the small things make a difference. How you take care of your body, what you put in your body in terms of diet, how you treat post-workout recovery and post-game recovery, and like all the things you need to do to stay competitive. I think that was an eye-opener for him at the next level. And so I saw him grow a lot in terms of that. And then in terms of just studying the game, putting his nose in the books and on the film in the game, his football IQ greatly increased, big time. Mine too, just learning from him actually at that next level. So I think for all of us. And then, with his transition from position to position, whether it was right guard to left guard and then over to left tackle, Elijah's a person who wants to be useful, who feels like, hey, I'm a do whatever I need to do to help the team out. So in terms of mentality, that wasn't a big transition for him. He's always been, hey, I'll throw the ball if you need me to, but he's all about, doing what's right for the team. So when the team needs him somewhere, he's going to become an expert in that position.
What was that experience like draft night when you heard the Jets had moved up 9 spots in order to get your son? And also, what do you think this season's going to be like, his first in the National Football League?
Man, that night was incredibly exciting. It says a whole lot that that they moved up so aggressively to get to him. They, in prior conversations with Alijah, they expressed to him that they really liked him and, a lot, but they weren't sure that he would be on the board when their turn came. So, we weren't necessarily expecting for him to be a Jet. And so when they moved up to grab him, like they really put the money where the mouth was. So, we really appreciate that and recognize what a big deal that is. Alijah recognizes that too. And so, he's prepared to prove him right. And so, that being said, we're looking forward to, a great opening season for him. It's going to be his first year in the NFL. I'm sure he's going to learn a lot and have to make some adjustments, like all new players do. But I'm looking forward to, a successful season for him and the Jets. I really like what the team is doing. They're very supportive of their players. And, you can see that. I hear that in Elijah's voice. He's excited. When I talk to him on the phone and FaceTime him, I can see it on his face that's a place where he wants to be. He's a family guy. So when he found out he was going to the East Coast, there was a little bit of like, oh man, I'm gonna be away from the family. But he's even kind of gotten over that where, he's established some new connections, he's got that family feel on the team. So I'm ecstatic. We're all like ecstatic about how it's going for him and the genuine feeling that's being built over there.
Great stuff from Solomon Tucker and really gives you insight as to who Alijah is, the person. Now let's move on to Alijah, let's say in college. Goes to USC, gets coached up by Tim Drevno on the offensive line. And we've talked about this a lot, but we should mention it again, how unique of a situation Alijah had in terms of where he played, because he played most of his career at left guard in 2019.
Right.
And then
well, in
goes
18, he actually started at right guard. Then he moved over to left guard in 19, and then finally in 2020.
He goes out to left tackle.
Yeah.
And not only does he play left tackle, well, first he opted out. Then he opts back in once the Pac-12 said, you know what, we're actually going to play football. Plays left tackle, and he does it better than anybody else in the conference. And he won the award for the conference's best offensive lineman. And the people who vote on that award is the Pac-12 defensive lineman that had to go up against him each week. So he's really respected by his peers.
Very rare athlete. You're talking about a guy who goes outside. And, Drevno told me that he's the kind of kid who's going to do whatever is best for the team. Hey, what can I do to help us collectively? And it also speaks to his athleticism as a ball player, also his intelligence as a ball player. He's going to be making a transition to the National Football League. We all know that. So there will be some hurdles to jump over, but he's a guy who throughout his college career, anything that was asked of him, he was up to the task and he performed it at an elite level.
And just by you mentioning he played 3 spots on the offensive line, you think about the types of linemen that Joe Douglas has brought in to the Jets. They're all versatile. They've all shown position versatility. So does Alijah Vera-Tucker. And Clay Helton, his head coach, said on NFL Network that he's kind of similar to Colts left guard Quentin Nelson in a way that you play him on the interior, but if you're really in a pinch, you could always kick him outside.
Well, what Drevno said was typically your best offensive lineman plays left tackle. And at USC, the coaching staff thought that not only could AVT help the Trojans, but also ultimately was going to help his draft status. Maybe if he stayed at left guard, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about Alijah Vera-Tucker being a Jet. Maybe he goes in the second round if he's just a very good guard on the collegiate level. No, he kicked outside and played at an elite level. And like you said, he was the conference's best blocker. Great feet. Also can recover very well. I think he's going to be a very good system fit for what Mike LaFleur and John Benton are doing here with the wide zone. Remember last year at USC, that was a big-time change because they implemented air raid offense for the first time in forever at USC.
You know, I think that a lot of fans, and I think a lot of, I'm excited personally to see Alijah Vera-Tucker in pads. And we'll talk about this Jets offensive line in a bit, but so far he's checked all the boxes from his now offensive line coach, John Benton, who said that everything you could do in the spring, the one thing you're missing is pads. So, that's one evaluation that Benton has not completed yet. But everything else he's checked the box. And I'm sure Drevno had a thing or two to say about Vera-Tucker's physicality.
No, you're right about that. And Benton said, hey, he's willing to learn the scheme, impressive athletically, and he seems to fit in with the guys. So definitely be in the running, providing he passes the physical test when we put the pads on. That sounds like an old school offensive line coach, but Drevno refers to him in this interview coming up as the silent assassin. Nice guy, but he'll come up and slit your throat.
All right, well, I don't think there's a better way that I can tee this interview up. So with that, let's hear from Tim Drevno.
He's as good as I've seen anybody as far as digging people out and then just dominating them and continuing that leg drive.
Coach, how did Alijah Vera-Tucker go from unknown commodity to the 14th overall selection in the NFL draft?
Well, I think just him as a person. I've never been around a guy. I've coached a lot of great players, but his desire to be great and his mindset that he attacks every day of wanting to be the best really took him to that level. His work ethic, his attitude, and as I always say, it's MDG, Mom, Dad, and God. I mean, he's been blessed with unbelievable talents, a skill set that's pretty impressive.
You coached at USC the past 2 seasons. What went into the decision to move AVT from left guard to left tackle?
I felt like one is it was the best for our football team to him to go out to the left tackle spot. You always say you want to put your best player at left tackle, and his initial quickness, his foot turnover speed. And I thought also, it would help his stock for the National Football League because when you are out in the left tackle spot, you don't have many sideboards. You're by yourself. You're mano a mano, and you can really see somebody's athletic ability show. So I thought it was a win-win for our football team and a win-win for himself for his career in the National Football League.
Was an interesting year for everybody. There's no doubt about that. Alijah actually thought he wasn't going to play, and you didn't know if you were going to have games in the Pac-12 last season. He ultimately opted in. When you broached the idea with him moving outside, what did he say?
He said, whatever's best for the team, Coach. He was good. I mean, there was no pushback. I talked to him about it. I said, are you okay with this? He says, yes. And I said, this is best for our football team. I think it's be best for your career as you go forward. And he was all on board. I mean, he was all hands on deck. His biggest thing was, hey, how do I learn how to pass that at the left tackle spot? That was different for him. But he really bought into it and was excited about taking that left tackle spot. And I think being a left tackle is kind of the guy like, hey, I'm the guy. You'd be able to beat your chest, say, hey, I'm leading this team. I'm the left tackle. This is the best position in the offensive line. And he was excited about it.
How rare is that in the National Football League? You know this. We talk about a lot of college tackles who are kicking inside, moving inside, but not too often do we talk about guards moving outside.
Yeah, it doesn't happen. That's a different deal. So, but I think that his athletic ability, who he is as a person, he could be really good out there, and he took advantage of it.
All right, but he probably will start at guard in the National Football League. Why did he excel inside? I think he had like 329 pass block opportunities in his second final season there at USC and allowed 1 pressure.
Yeah, no, he'll do great inside. I think one is he plays with power, he plays with strength, and I think that he sets anchor very well on the bull rush. I know that, in the NFL, it's hard to run the ball, and I think he'll be a great pass blocker. I think that he could probably be a right guard if somebody chooses, more times than not, the 3 technique. You're by yourself on a right guard in the National Football League, because more times than not, you put the tight end to the right side because the hashes are narrow. So I think he'll do a great job. I think he'll be able to set anchor, like I said. I think he'll be able to move people off the ball, and he's smart, and he's got really good recoverability skills. Sometimes he gets knocked off a block and get his feet back underneath him. So he'll do great there.
What do you think about the potential of the left side of the Jets line, of the Jets offensive line, not only in 2021 but beyond? Because Joe Douglas, the GM here, addressed the offensive line the previous first round, taking Mekhi Becton out of Louisville. Now he's 6'7", 360 plus pounds, and now you bring in Alijah Vera-Tucker.
I think that's going to be a really solid left side of the line. Mekhi Becton, I recruited him when I was at the University of Michigan, so I know him very well. I know his parents very well. What a great young man, a competitor. I've seen him compete on the basketball floor, Mekhi. Those two guys are going to be a dynamic duo on the left side for the Jets. I really believe that. That's a really good job by the GM, good picks by him and the coaching staff.
Yeah, Tim, what do you think about the change for Elijah system-wise, going from an air raid now to that wide zone approach under Mike LaFleur?
I think it would be a really good fit. I think Elijah, one of his strengths is his initial quickness, and I know running in the wide zone system, you got to have great hat speed when you come off the ball, and I think he'll fit in really well because it's all about feet and covering up guys, and I know being in that system with the wide zone that you kind of do it over and over and over, and he'll get really good at that skill set to be very productive.
What was he like for you in the room? You've raved about his leadership abilities already and his character. Can you give me specific instances where it really stood out to you?
Yeah, he's a guy that comes in every day. He's got the laser beam focus, wants to be really good at what he does. He sits down, he has his notepad open, he's taking notes. If he doesn't understand something, he's going to ask you, and if he might have to explain it in another different way to him so he gets it because he wants to be right. He does not go out to the practice field like saying, well, I didn't quite understand that. He wants to be right when he goes out there. He wants to be great at it. And I think he's one of those guys that if you're missing something, because as a coach, sometimes you got a lot on your plate and he thinks that maybe you can explain it in a different way. So he asks a question for a younger person in the room to fully understand it. He's willing to take that leadership in the room. And, he's a guy that he wants to be right. And he wants to lead the room, and failure is not an option. So he's a pleasure to be in the room. He's very businesslike.
He seems like he's got that alpha male personality on the football field, but a very nice guy off the field. Can you talk about the dynamic, how he wants to drive you into the dirt on the field, but off the field, you can't find too many guys who are genuinely nicer.
Yeah, no, he off the field, he's got unbelievable parents. He's been raised unbelievably. He's got an unbelievable work ethic. His personality, very caring, respectful. But on the field, I used to call him the silent assassin, man. That guy's a quiet guy, but he's going to drill you. I used to say this guy will come across from the back of you, sneak up behind and slit your throat, and you wouldn't even know it. That's the kind of demeanor that he has. And he's a physical guy. He wants to oppose his physicality on. He wants to finish people. He plays the game the way the game needs to be played, fit with a physical mindset and a game and physicality. That's who he is. And it's unbelievable to watch him play. He finishes to the whistle.
How is his feel and understanding the game? Because in this system, people talk about making decisions on the run.
He's very good. He has some football savvy that's in him that you can't coach. That he kind of knows where exactly to put his hat if he needs the recoverability. He can, he passes off line games very well, like naturally. If it's an ET or TE, he's got great recoverability and really good balance on the second level. And you can give him an unscouted look, he'll figure it out. He'll communicate very well.
Some guys who are offensive linemen, they come out, maybe they're further ahead. as far as protection or in the run game. Seems like Elijah is quite refined in both those areas as he starts his career.
Yeah, I think that he is very refined in that. And I think what he probably have to get used to there at that level is just the strength of the player that he's going against. And I think that maybe just a little bit of the speed aspect of it, but he's got the athletic ability, he's got the will, he's got the physicality to make a great transition. And then I think on top of that, with the 16-game season and plus, I think just being right with his body, which he'll learn. He does that already, but there's going to be a little bit of a step. And I think also that just the offensive scheme and the complexity and stuff that he'll transition well. But there'll be a little bit of a transition for him, but he'll do really well.
Not to put you on the spot, and I know you've coached a lot of quality players during your day. Was Alijah one of your favorites, just considering not only what he achieved on the field, but all these other intangibles that you've spoken about?
Yeah, no, he's I've coached a lot of great players. I've coached Austin Jackson. I've coached Joe Staley, Mike Iapati. I mean, I've go on and on. Mason Cole. I've coached a lot of great players. He's one of those guys he's one of those elite guys. When I think of a Hall of Famer, all pro guy type guy like a Joe Staley, he's got his intangibles, his mindset, his want to. It was a complete pleasure. And for him to come back and play that last year for 6 games for USC and things means, that says a lot about him, because he basically opted out, but he wanted to come back and win a championship. He wanted to do it for his brothers in the room and the brothers on the team. And he's ultimately a team guy. And that says a lot about him as a character. I always say that you want to make yourself small and everybody else big, humble thyself. He's one of those type of guys. And it's not about him, it's about the team, and he doesn't gloat in all of his things, awards that he's accomplished. I mean, he's not that type of guy at all.
Alijah Vera-Tucker, the silent assassin. Did you also hear in Flight 2021 when Joe Douglas referred to a clip of Alijah Vera-Tucker when he went into Godzilla mode? I like that quote.
Yeah, and that speaks to what Drevno talked about, is that he can recover, right? Because Douglas in that clip on 2021 was playing a spot in a play where he was losing, but he was able to recover and he took over and then went to domination.
All right, so we've heard from Tim Drevno. We've heard from Solomon Tucker. Next, we're going to hear from Anthony Munoz, who, of course, is a legendary USC offensive lineman. But I will say Munoz doesn't know Vera-Tucker as well as the previous 2 guys we've heard from, because the first time those 2 guys met was actually in the pre-draft process at like a shoot.
Yeah, and that was interesting, because you would have thought maybe, hey, their paths had crossed before, but Munoz, obviously a busy man, and AVT getting things done with the USC. And unfortunately for a lot of people last year, trailer was not an option. So even if Anthony wanted to go to a USC game, that wasn't going to be on the table during a pandemic. But who else would you rather talk to than Anthony Munoz, perhaps one of the top 3 offensive linemen who've ever played the game? And from just listening to people who have been around Alijah Vera-Tucker throughout his life, he soaked in everything during their short time together.
And I think what's also cool is we've heard from 2 people who clearly know Alijah Vera-Tucker very well, and they have their own opinions on him. And Anthony Munoz, who doesn't know Alijah Vera-Tucker as well, came away with the same opinions that those 2 guys did, meaning that he liked the film, he liked the person as well, and that's just coming away from a couple days of interacting with each other. So I think that Alijah Vera-Tucker, everything that we've heard about him, you definitely know what you just said, that he enjoyed every moment of learning from one of the best offensive linemen, and they also happen to share an alma mater. So I think it's probably a really cool experience for Alijah Vera-Tucker, and I think that Anthony Munoz really enjoyed getting to know, I guess the newest alum of USC to make it to the NFL in terms of the offensive linemen.
Yeah, and listen, again, just those guys, wouldn't you like to be a fly on the wall when Munoz is imparting his wisdom to AVT. Again, USC, you think about them over the years. I know if they've went to the air raid attack offensively, but you think about them getting after people in the trenches. And a guy like Munoz is so revered. So, that was a good experience for Alijah, no doubt about it.
All right, well, let's hear from the Hall of Famer, Anthony Munoz.
It's a great feeling. We in New York now, New Jersey. It's time to get active. Yes, sir. Feels good.
Anthony, when was the first time you met Alijah Vera-Tucker?
Well, Ethan, thanks for having me. It's good to be with you. I wish it would have been a lot sooner than out in Arizona last month, because, being a USC guy and Alijah just finishing up there, I usually still get to 2 or 3 games a year, but with COVID in the last couple of years, it hasn't worked out the way it usually does. So I usually get a chance to, if not spring practice, get back and watch games. I get a chance to meet the guys. But last month was the first time I met Alijah, and I'm thankful that I had a chance to meet the young man.
And can you explain, under what circumstances you met him?
Yeah. Being a member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, we have this program. It's sponsored by Ford. It's kind of a mentoree type of program where we take a gold jacket, a Hall of Famer, and we spend a day with a young man that's going to be drafted, that's entering the draft. That same day, there was a wide receiver. James Lofton was out there with the wide receiver. Aeneas Williams was out there with, defensive back. And I happened to be out there with Alijah. And so I agreed to do it. So it's one of those things where we spend a day in the classroom talking football, watching some tape of their games, and then we go out on the football field and, go through some technique questions, hear what he's doing, maybe give him some, things that I use and still being used as offensive linemen. So it's really a cool program that we've had going for several years now. It's all about mentoring and having a mentoree with a young man that's going to be drafted.
So, first of all, what did you know about Alijah Vera-Tucker before you headed out there, other than the fact that you share an alma mater? And second of all, what were your first impressions of him, from the moment he shook your hand to then going through film and going through field work?
Well, the first thing that I knew about Alijah was that, he played guard. He opted out because of COVID, but then when the Pac-12 decided to play, he decided to play, and he played left tackle and played it extremely well. So I knew he was versatile. I knew that, he could move from the inside to the outside and be just as effective, if not more effective. So I knew that about him. I still follow USC quite closely. I still, if I'm not watching, I know about the guy. So I knew that about Vera-Tucker. I knew that he was, pretty good offensive lineman. The thing that I, noticed right away when I met him was just how genuine and how down to earth, but at the same time, how focused and how he really wanted to get to work and learn something if I had anything to pass on and learn things like how smart he was about football acumen and about the game and what's going on, and he wanted to learn. I mean, that's a sign of a guy that's going to be a great player, is that he wants to learn. He's not satisfied with performing at the highest level, at USC or a major college, but he knows it's the next step up. So, a lot of questions. We went over some technique, and I saw that he wanted to learn, and he asked a lot of questions. Sometimes some guys are hesitant to ask questions, but in the classroom, and then when we got on the field, the same thing. We talked through technique. He showed me stuff. I showed him stuff. So, it was a lot of fun for me. Haven't been out of the game as long as I have, but still having chances to work with guys over the years, as recently as the last year or two. So I noticed right away that I know once he gets into the program and into camp, he's going to be like a sponge and want to learn and want to get even better.
Anthony, you did it better than anybody else, right? You're a Pro Football Hall of Famer. When you watch Alijah Vera-Tucker on tape and then you see the work ethic that you talked about and the willingness to learn and the eagerness to learn, what does that say about him, and what do you think of the way he plays?
Well, it says that, again, he wants to be the best. Anytime you have someone that asks questions, wants to learn, then you see them play, and they play extremely well. And then you get them into a classroom or into onto a football field. We're just going to go through technique, and they're not like, okay, I know what you're talking about. I got it. But they're like, how about this? How about this? How about that? That to me says that he wants to improve and he wants to get better. Alijah is a player, very athletic, very strong. Again, moving from the guard to the left tackle, his ability to work out in space. So I was very impressed. So, it was one of those things where, sometimes you might question that move. There's really, at times, there's no question about moving a tackle in guard. But when you're moving a guard out to left tackle, it's like, oh, okay, let's see what happens there. No, it was like, move him out to left tackle. Nice move. He's doing a great job. So those are the things that I'm really impressed with, is that athleticism, his strength, and of course his work ethic.
What does it say about Alijah? I've asked a lot of people this question, and I'm curious your take. Outside of showing his versatility, what does it say about him that he played guard, won the USC Offensive Lineman of the Year award when there was a first-round left tackle and Austin Jackson goes to the Dolphins, and then, to your point, he opts out. The Pac-12 says, actually, we're playing. He opts back in.
Yeah.
Then he goes out to left tackle and wins the Morris Trophy. What does that say about Alijah Vera-Tucker?
Well, to me, it says he's an ultimate team player. Put me where you need me. Put me wherever you believe it's going to be best for the team. 1 year it's at guard, does amazing. The next year it's like, hey, we need you at left tackle. Hey, I'm there. If that's what it means for our team to be a better offensive football team, then put me there. So, again, it's about being the ultimate team player and saying, wherever you need me, coach, I'm there, and I'm gonna play at the highest level.
I met Alijah inside the BetMGM studio here. He shook my hand. He basically told me through his handshake that he could crush me if he wanted to. But he said, you know what? This is just an introduction, so I'm just letting you know, don't cross me. But he seemed very cool, calm, and collected. And, as an offensive lineman, you got to have a little bit of a mean streak. What did you take about, what were your takeaways of Alijah, the person, not the player?
Yeah. Well, and again, I think most offensive linemen are cut out of that cloth. You get them off the field, man, they're easy going. They're very cordial. They're nice, but you get them between the lines and you try and get their running back or their quarterback, and it's just like a switch turns on, and it's like, there's no way I'm going to do whatever it takes to keep you off my guys. And, to me, he's right there. I mean, it's that calm, it's that poise, it's that, if you want to say it's being a professional, even on the college level, it's about being a professional. But when it's time to produce, I wouldn't look at Alijah once he puts the pads on and gets on the field with the team to say, well, there's a rookie. No, he's just a rookie because he was drafted this year. But I would say once he starts mixing it up, you're going to say, hey, that's all behind him. It doesn't matter that it's a rookie. He wants that starting position. And I think that's the key, is that, I'm sure the more you sit down with him and talk to him off the field, in the classroom, on the camera, he's just going to be poised. He's going to be polite. But then you'll see the different side of Alijah once he's on the field.
Both of you, California kids, both go to USC, both first-round picks. You end up in Cincinnati. He's coming to the bright lights of New York and New Jersey. What's in store for Alijah Vera-Tucker as he makes that transition from very good offensive tackle in college to now a professional in the NFL?
Well, I think that the main thing is really blocking all the noise, all the craziness that comes along with the professional game, and understanding that now this is your job. This is how you're going to provide for yourself, hopefully for 10 plus years. That's the way you have to look at it. So the work ethic we talked about, the preparation, the intensity, and just those goals of wanting to do that. That's what you're there for. Sure, you got the bright lights, you got the big city, New York, Jersey. I mean, the media is so much bigger than a lot of cities, but it still boils down to, it doesn't matter what you did in college. It doesn't matter where you were drafted. Now it's time to produce, and hopefully for a long time. So that's what I would say to Alijah, is just, what you have to do. This is a great opportunity. And I share this with young men. It's a great opportunity for you, not only on the football field, but it's a great opportunity to let this flow over the game into your life off the field and even after you finish the game. So there's a lot of opportunities that this game affords you, and it's a matter of what you want to put into it during the season, during the off season, and in taking care of yourself in preparation and the intensity that you play the game with.
As someone that's been, seen this movie before, let's say, and, you could make the argument that you starred in the movie too, but What for Alijah? What would you consider a successful rookie year in the NFL?
Well, again, the standards, and I'm sure he had the same standards going to USC and being the number one pick. I wasn't going to be satisfied with just wearing the Bengal stripes. He can't be satisfied with just wearing that uniform. You got to be a starter, and then you're going to learn. You're going to make some mistakes, but to me, playing is really success. I mean, playing, fighting for that starting job. If you fight for it and you've done everything and still you kind of fall short, that's the main thing. That's success. Leave everything on the field. Leave everything on videotape for the coaches to see that you are in the mix for a starting job. But I think, again, just to kind of share my own experience, success for me was being that number one pick and going to camp and winning that starting job and then progressing after that.
All right, Anthony, last question for you, and you've been so gracious with your time. You met Alijah a couple months ago in Arizona. Have you had any communication since, and what do you hope comes from this mentor-mentee relationship down the road?
I have not had any contact with him. I hope, because there's a lot going on. I hope once things settle down, that I get a chance to communicate with them and talk to them and see how things are going. If I'm not mistaken, I think the Jets might be in Cincinnati this year, if I'm not mistaken. So hopefully I have a chance to watch him in person play as a starter. Again, there hasn't been any communication since we had that time in Arizona, but I hope to, just like I do with a lot of other young men that I meet that go through USC. Hopefully that it'll come soon. I'll get a chance to kind of get an update on his progress from himself personally, to hear how things are going for him on the National Football League level.
Well, the Cincinnati Bengals, to answer your question, come to MetLife Stadium. So it sounds like we need you to come to MetLife Stadium. That's basically what you're telling me here.
Well, that might be, depending on how things are, with everything that's going on. If I don't get harassed too much about going back there as someone watching the game, that might be. I don't go to many Bengals away games, but I'd have a little interest with my stripes, Bengal stripes, and then Alijah watching him play. So I knew they were playing this year. I just wasn't sure of location, but you never know. I might show up there in MetLife Stadium.
So the interview's in the books, and now let's shift our attention to basically what this offensive line now looks like with Alijah Vera-Tucker. You mentioned it earlier. A lot of analysts like to think, all right, he's going next to Mekhi Becton because Alijah Vera-Tucker, I'd say, had his first breakout season at left guard before this past season at left tackle. So a lot of people say, well, the Jets are set at left tackle with Mekhi Becton. Insert Alijah Vera-Tucker on the left side, and then you have a really young, promising future on the left side of your offensive line.
Yeah, and you have Zach Wilson, who is your quarterback now. So, I mean, potentially you're hoping, if you're a member of the Jets personnel staff, that these guys are going to be together. All three of these guys are going to be together for quite a long time, 5, 10, 12, 15. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but those are two talented big dudes, Mekhi Becton and Alijah Vera-Tucker. And I think Vera-Tucker is going to be able to transition to the NFL game rather quickly. Again, everybody faces hurdles. But he is a very good learner. He has a professional mind to his game that you really like. And then next to them, Connor McGovern, who gutted it out last year. You got to give him a lot of credit. Greg Van Roten, you would figure that he could be the guy penciled in at right guard as we speak right now. How about Joe Douglas continuing to address the offensive line position throughout the offseason, bringing in Morgan Moses? And the Jets really like George Fanta as well. So you love where you are at the tackle position right now, I think, if you're the Jets. And then you can talk about the depth on the interior. It's not like it's just limited. That depth is limited to the outside.
Right. We've mentioned Vera-Tucker. You mentioned Van Roten and McGovern. Then you think about a guy like Dan Feeney, who has been one of the most available offensive linemen since he was drafted in 2017. I mean, this guy basically hasn't missed a snap in 4 seasons. Well, he has, but close to it that he hasn't. And then you also have Alex Lewis back on this roster. And I don't think I'm missing anybody, but you think about the
Well,
depth
then you
there.
got
Cameron Clark,
Cameron
of course,
Clark.
in his second year.
Yep.
He's someone, I mean, I know this is the Alijah Vera-Tucker podcast,
Yeah.
but I'm interested to see how Cam Clark looks like in the preseason. It would be his first time playing in a game.
Yeah. You mentioned Feeney. You have a lot of position flexibility too, right? Because Feeney actually started at center last year for the Chargers, and he's got a lot of starting experience and durability. Lewis is a guy who likes to get in the phone booth and get after people. So I think the Jets' offensive line is one of the most improved units. On paper, I don't know if it's quite to the level where the receiver position ultimately could be in terms of where it was and then where it is right now. But Joe Douglas certainly has followed through with everything he said when he was hired to be the Jets general manager. He wants to be very good up front. And if you're a Jets fan right now, you know that, hey, listen, you won 2 games last year, but the talent is definitely better, and it starts up front. We speak about the defensive line. That might be the best overall unit on the New York Jets team, but the offensive line looks to be really starting to come together.
I completely agree. And I will say if Vera-Tucker starts at left guard, nickname applications are open for the Mekhi Becton, Alijah Vera-Tucker tandem. We've had a couple from Brian Baldinger in the past. He said the Bash Brothers.
I like the Bash Brothers because it has an Oakland reference, and that's where Alijah Vera-Tucker grew up. Of course, he went to USC down in Southern California, but Bash Brothers, Mark McGuire, Jose Canseco. So
I thought Mighty Ducks. I mean, granted, I wasn't really, I don't want to say I wasn't around, but I wasn't like a huge, you're an Oakland A's fan. I wasn't a huge Oakland A's guy, and I wasn't a big baseball fan at the time in which they were the Bash Brothers.
Drevno called them potentially a dynamic duo.
Okay, I like that.
That's simple.
What did Becton say on Twitter? Jordan and Pippen?
Yeah.
That's
high aspirations.
That's pretty big. I think the Bash Brothers might be the middle ground there.
Yeah, I do like the Oaktown reference.
You like the Mighty Ducks, though?
No.
The movies? You don't like the Mighty Ducks movies?
They're okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I figured, for those who don't know, EA has a hockey background.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe, I was curious your opinion on the
hockey
hockey
movies.
movies.
If you're going to go comedy, you go Slapshot, right? Matt Sickoff, our technical director here on the Jets podcast. Or you go Youngblood with Rob Lowe. That was way back in the day. And then Miracle.
Of course.
I
will say
talking about
in D3,
Kurt Russell playing Herb Brooks, of course.
Right. Well, my thing is, with the Bash Brothers, one of my favorite scenes in the Mighty Ducks, D3, they're at the boarding school, I think in Chicago or wherever it was, and Dean Portman, who wasn't a part of that team, comes in the middle of a game at halftime, then he lines up next to Fulton Reed, and they start getting after some people, which, by the way, would never really happen. You can't just, join a team in the middle of halftime, but I really like that scene, and I really like the Bash Brothers.
You're showing that you are a little bit of a hockey fan there because there is no halftime in hockey. There's intermission in between periods.
In football, you can't just join in halftime. That's what I was trying to get after. Like if somebody were hurt or you sign a guy, you can't just come in during halftime.
I just don't think of Mighty Ducks and think about using your will on somebody. You're just imposing your will on somebody.
Absolutely.
I think about nice images, mental imagery there. Where football in the trenches, I think it's let's get after people.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Is there anything else you want to say on AVT? I feel like, not that it changes the complexity of the Jets' offensive line, but it's always nice to get a young, talented offensive lineman. And didn't Daniel Jeremiah say he thought he had Pro Bowl potential at an early part of his career?
I think there's no doubt about it. When myself and you were looking at some of these prospects coming out and doing those positional previews, we thought potentially this could be the cleanest offensive lineman in the entire draft class. And if that proves out to be the case on the field, the Jets are well underway as far as creating something potentially dynamic in front of Zach Wilson.
No doubt about it. So that was the Alijah Vera-Tucker podcast profile series episode right here on the Official Jets podcast.